A very good morning to all of you, my dear students. So now we are going to discuss something about cancer chemotherapy in detail, along with the other treatment modalities that are available in this second session. So let us see. So cancer chemotherapy. I'm going to cover this topic under these 12 subheadings, that is treatment modalities that are available for the management of cancer in general, and then chemotherapy in detail, origin of chemotherapy, goals of chemotherapy, types of chemotherapy, and why it is tough to treat cancer with all these modalities that are available, then tumor susceptibility and cell cycle based cytotoxic drugs, then treatment scheduling, combination chemotherapy, problems with chemotherapy, and chemotherapy induced toxicity in general. So, coming to the treatment modalities proper, so we have chemotherapy, surgery, and radiotherapy as the treatment modalities that are available for the management of cancer. So chemotherapy is used whenever there is micrometastasis. If there is no metastasis in the body, you can directly go for either surgery for the complete elimination of the tumor with a surgical excision, and we can even go for radiotherapy if there is no metastasis. That can these two modalities of treatment can give rise to 50% cure rate at the early stage of the disease. Whereas chemotherapy is used basically to remove the micrometastasis that is still left over in certain cases, but it gives rise to only 10 to 15% cure rate. Then coming to the surgery, so it is a modality of treatment where we can completely remove the cancer cells from the body as such. Most commonly used for the managing cancers like breast cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer, and non-small cell lung cancer, etc. So it is obviously specifically done for localized mass, removing the entire tumor mass. Then coming to the radiotherapy modality of treatment, I'm going to cover this a little bit in precise details. So it is a local treatment where we use high energy rays to kill the cancer cells by stopping them from growing and dividing. But the problem with this modality of treatment is it affects both cancer cells and normal cells as well. And it also produces its own toxic manifestations like tiredness, skin reactions, and loss of appetite, leukopenia, etc. So we have two types of radiotherapy. That is, one is preventive and other is therapeutic. Preventive means to reduce the chances of local recurrence of the metastatic tumor again. And therapeutic radiotherapy, we use molecules like adenine 131, phosphorus 32, and uranium 198. Then how do they generally start a process of radiotherapy means they first of all take the CT scan for 30 minutes to design radiotherapy, and they will mark the markings on the body of the patient, and they discuss the doctor discusses the radiotherapy treatment plan directly with the patient so that the patient will have consent, informed consent, and then he will be like adjusted to the current upcoming treatment plan. Then then only the patient is asked to come back again for the actual radiotherapy treatment. So here you can see the radiotherapy assembly. This is the mission which gives rise to radiation beams. So ureter and the surrounding area is affected. So here the possible positions, so they will set it up first so that the focus will be on the prostate. Okay. Then, what are the various other types of radiation therapy as such? That is, one is external beam radiation therapy, and another is internal radiation therapy. External beam radiation therapy means it delivers radiation using a linear accelerator. Okay, from here. Then internal radiation therapy means, or it is otherwise known as brachytherapy, where seed implants involves placing radioactive sources inside the patient. They'll insert inside the body of the patient. Okay, the type of treatment used will depend on the location, size, and type of cancer. Then coming to the other modalities that are used in the management of cancer with radiotherapy, that is, radiopharmaceuticals are used. That is, radionuclides irradiated with beta rays. That is, adenine 131, phosphorus 32, Pa 193, and strontium 89 are used most commonly. And we have also local therapy to treat with for prostate and vaginal cancers. So in this radiopharmaceuticals, here this is diagnostic therapeutic radionuclide molecule is seen, which is linked with the vector molecule, so that it will affect the target malignant tumor. Then photodynamic cancer therapy, irradiation with laser light with consequent formation of free radicals, most commonly used with the porphyrin and temaporphin. So here you can see mechanism of photodynamic therapy. So light laser beam is used, so which can activate the photoactive drug, giving rise to oxygen free radicals, which can initiate cellular apoptosis, and that's how it is going to work in the management of the cancer radiotherapy. So this is a laser radiotherapy. Laser beam is seen clearly here. Then chemotherapy in detail we are going to discuss now. So what is chemotherapy first of all? Chemotherapy means it is the treatment of cancer using specific chemical agents or drugs that are destructive to malignant cells and tissues. But the problem with chemotherapy is the drugs are toxic to both normal cells and cancer cells. That's why they are referred to as cytotoxic drugs in general. Then coming to the origin of chemotherapy. So here we can see in 1890, surgical treatment or cauterization of tumors as the only therapeutic option for the management of cancers. Whereas in 1900, the radiotherapy has evolved. That is, Marie and Pierre Curie started to treat cancer tumors by using X-rays. Then in 1940, chemotherapy has evolved. Development of anti-tumor drugs for the treatment of hematological as well as solid tumors. And after that, 1948, there is nitrogen mustard development and all that. We'll be discussing that while we discuss it in detail about the alkylating agents. Then in 1980, targeted therapy, that is tyrosine kinase inhibitors and monoclonal antibodies directed to specific tumors and molecular alteration. This is also we are going to discuss while discussing about the drugs in detail. Then 2010, checkpoint inhibitors, that is use of monoclonal antibodies able to stimulate the immune system against cancers. This also we'll discuss later. So chemotherapy began in 1940 and nitrogen mustard is been introduced in 1948, where modern chemotherapy has started as such. And it is only since last 10 to 15 years, chemotherapy has become the major modality of treatment for cancer management. Then what are the various routes of administration for this chemotherapeutic cytotoxic drugs? So they are administered through various routes like oral, subcutaneous, intravenous, intraarterial, intraperitoneal, intrapleural, intravesicular, and intraventricular, or even intrathecal administration. Then coming to the choice of therapy, if the tumor is solid, then we can go ahead with surgery or radiotherapy along with chemotherapy to nullify even the micrometastasis. The metastases are available, then if the metastases are seen, then we can go ahead with chemotherapy as such. And for non-solid tumors management, only chemotherapy is the option available. Then coming to the goals of chemotherapy, ultimate goal of chemotherapy is one is cure. That is long-term disease-free survival is expected and eradication of every neoplastic cell is observed. So most commonly seen with in case of choriocarcinoma. Then palliation, this is the second goal of chemotherapy, that is control of the disease. So here we can see alleviation of symptoms in advanced stage. So stop the cancer from enlarging and spreading, extending the survival of the patient, maintaining the best quality of life. Okay, this is most commonly seen in advanced stages of breast cancer. Then coming to the types of chemotherapy, we have four types. That is, one is primary induction chemotherapy, where when neoplasms are disseminated and are not amenable to surgery, like that of seen in case of Hodgkin's lymphoma and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, then we can choose the option of my primary induction chemotherapy. Then maintenance chemotherapy. This is given in lower doses for prolonged remission to avoid the further recurrences. Then adjuvant chemotherapy. Chemotherapy as a supplemental treatment to attack micrometastasis following surgery and radiation treatment. Most commonly seen in the management of breast cancer. Then neoadjuvant chemotherapy. That is chemotherapy given prior to surgical procedure to shrink the cancerous growth, which is most commonly used in the management of gastroesophageal cancer. So the differences between adjuvant chemotherapy and neoadjuvant chemotherapy are adjuvant chemotherapy is given after surgery and radiation, whereas neoadjuvant chemotherapy, it is chemotherapy is given before surgical procedure. Neo means before. That way you can remember. So concepts in chemotherapy: adjuvant chemotherapy, neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and combination chemotherapy. Okay. So then, why it is tough to treat cancer? Let us see. Chemotherapy. 10% cases, chemotherapy will result in a cure or a prolonged remission. Only 10% response that we can get with chemotherapy. In most cases, drug therapy will produce only a regression of the disease, but the complication can lead the patient to the death ultimately. So overall 5-year survival rate for cancer patients is 68%. So that is the reason why cancer mortality rate, cancer has taken the second position regarding the mortality rate of all diseases. So if we see the differences between bacterial infected cells and malignant cells, so we are discussing about something about why it is tough to treat the cancer. So bacterial metabolism is different from that of host cells, whereas malignant cells are host cells with a deranged regulation of growth and differentiation and relatively minor other differences. So they are almost similar to the normal cells within the body. Whereas bacterial cells, bacterial infected cells are something different because bacterial metabolism is different. So selectivity of drugs is limited here because whatever drug you choose, it is going to act on normal cells also. Whereas selectivity of drugs is positive, that is seen here. And specific targets for drug therapy are developed now. So they come under the novel drug therapy. Then infecting microorganisms are amenable to immunological and other host defense mechanisms. Whereas if you approach that kind of therapy, cancer cells are not at all amenable to immunological and other host defense mechanism, but they are also improved. They come under the novel drug therapy systems, but they themselves produce some other autoimmune toxicity also. So a lethal cytotoxic event or apoptosis in the cancer cells that can arrest a tumor's progression that we have discussed already in our first session. The attack is generally directed towards DNA or against metabolic sites essential to cell replication. For example, the availability of purines and pyrimidines, which are the building blocks for DNA or RNA synthesis. With this, we'll be discussing about when we go to the drugs in detail, various types of drugs like antimetabolites and alkylating agents and all these things. So ideal anti-cancer drugs should interfere only with cellular processes that are unique to malignant cells, but it does not happen. They do attack the normal cells as well. So anti-cancer drugs do not specifically recognize neoplastic cells and does affect all kinds of proliferating cells. So whichever cell is proliferating, so whether it is normal cell or malignant cell, these anti-cancer cytotoxic drugs are going to affect both the cells. So because of which there is a steep dose response curve seen both with the therapeutic efficacy as with the toxicity as well with these drugs. But newer agents block checking points that we are going to discuss in cell cycle. Just try to keep this point in your mind and allow the patient's own immune system to attack cancer cells. This is a novel therapy. But the ADR, adverse drug reactions, present as autoimmune toxicity as compared to the myelosuppressive profile with traditional chemotherapy agents. So what happens is, if we use traditional chemotherapy agents, there is a higher risk of myelosuppression. There is a major ADR with cytotoxic drugs. But when we use the blocking therapy with the novel drugs like blocking checking points, and allowing the patient's own immune system to attack the cancer cells, they do produce autoimmune toxicity. So nowhere the toxicity is spared for the normal cells even. And coming to the tumor susceptibility, rapidly dividing cells are more sensitive to chemotherapy. In case of lymphomas and leukemias, it is most commonly seen. Whereas slowly proliferating cells that are seen in case of bronchial and colorectal carcinoma are less sensitive to chemotherapy. And non-dividing cells which are in Z0 phase survive the toxic effects of these agents. So these are the phases of cell cycle. This is Z0, non-replicating. So cells are in a dormant state. Then they will enter into G1 phase. So where the synthesis of enzymes needed for DNA synthesis and replication are needed. So here DNA synthesis happens and DNA replication also happens. And G2, this is synthetic phase. This is then followed by G2 phase, where synthesis of cellular components required for mitosis are happening. Then it is followed by mitotic phase. That is cell division. Actual cell division happens here. So this is the same picture. So temporary resting period. This is Z0 phase. Then, so where the cells don't divide. In example, neuron cells. So G1 and G2 are the phases where the cells constantly grow in size. So G1 phase, cellular constituents which are needed for DNA synthesis are synthesized in G1 phase. And in G2 phase, the cellular constituents which are needed for the process of mitosis to happen are synthesized. And here in M phase, mitosis actually happens. Okay. Then here you can see another thing, same thing G1. This is S phase, this is G2 phase, and this is M phase. Mitosis happens, nuclear division as well as cytokinesis happens. So here you can see between G1 phase and S phase, this is one checkpoint. So this is the novel drug therapy. That's what we just now discussed about it. So we are going to target this checkpoint. And another checkpoint is seen between G2 phase and M phase. These are also going to be targeted, but they do have toxicity. Then cell cycle specific cytotoxic drugs. So we have, in connection to the cell cycle, the cytotoxic drugs are again divided into two categories, that is cell cycle non-specific drugs and some cell cycle specific drugs. Non-specific drugs with more toxicity in cycling cells and are also useful against tumors that have low percentage of replicating cells. Non-specific cells means, so they can attack cells which are in the dormant phase, that is Z0 phase also. Cell cycle specific drugs means drugs which are effective only against replicating cells, like all the other phases. Okay. Then cell cycle non-specific phases, so kills resting as well as dividing cells. So even Z0 phases attacked here with non-specific drugs. Examples are actinomycin D, busulfan, cyclophosphamide, chlorambucil, carmostyn, cisplatin, dacarbazine, asparginase, mystine, and procarbazine. So you can have the mnemonic like ABCD, okay, LMP. Cell cycle specific drugs means kill only actively dividing cells. So toxicity is generally expressed in S phase. But they may show even considerable phase selectivity, like G1 phase when blastin drug acts through that, and methotrexate, cetarabine, fludarabine, then 6-TG, 6-mercaptopurine, 5-fluorouracil, hydroxyurea, mitomycin C, doxorubicin, and daunorubicin, all these act through S phase, whereas daunorubicin, it can act through G2 phase also, along with bleomycin, etoposide, and topotecon. And vincristine, vinblastine, vinorelbine, paclitaxel, and docetaxel, all kinds of antimitotic drugs act through M phase, that is mitotic phase. So that's why they are known as antimitotic drugs. Then what are the principles that we need to follow here? Use cell-specific drugs in short courses or pulses of treatment when you are choosing the option chemotherapy as an option of therapy. So short courses, pulses of treatment. So this allows non-cycling cells which are in the G0 phase also to re-enter the cycle between the drug courses. And another point that you have to remember is cell cycle specific drugs are generally scheduled after a course of cell cycle non-specific drugs. Okay. So cell cycle specific drugs with pulses treatment and cell cycle specific drugs are followed after cell cycle non-specific drugs to improve the cell kill, because both the cellular line will be killed. So we can have improved log kill. The cell cycle specific drugs are more effective in hematological malignancies and in solid tumors where there is a large growth fraction. But in case of solid cancers where there is small growth fraction, we can directly go ahead with cell cycle non-specific drugs. Then we have just now discussed about the pulse therapy, that is cyclic treatment. In between the therapy, there is a gap that is given so that the cells which are in dormant phase or in G0 phase also can enter, and even the normal cells also can recover. So for optimum remission, cyclic treatment is given for 6 to 11 cycles. It has been found that maintenance therapy thereafter does not produce any additional benefit. So no need to give another dose of another cycle of chemotherapy, I can say. Then human interferon alpha 2 and other cytokines like interleukin 2, tumor necrosis factor, etc., can modify the biological response. They are called as biological response modifiers, which are used as adjuvants in treating neoplasms. They appear to have some direct inhibitory effect on malignant cells in addition to reinforcing immunological defense against these malignant cells. Then coming to the tumor growth rate, the growth rate of most solid tumors in vivo is initially rapid, but as the tumor grows further and further, the growth rate starts declining. So it is mainly because of the unavailability of nutrients and oxygen caused by inadequate vascularization and lack of blood circulation. Okay. Then the tumor burden can be reduced through surgery, radiation, or by using cell cycle non-specific drugs. That's what we have discussed, like in case of neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So chemotherapy is used before surgery to reduce or shrink the tumor size, so that to promote the remaining cells into active proliferation, thus increasing their susceptibility to cell cycle specific chemotherapeutic agents. Then treatment scheduling, how you are going to actually schedule the treatment. Drug dosages are usually calculated on the basis of body surface area. Okay. So what is log-kill phenomenon? Destruction of cancer cells by chemotherapeutic agents follows first-order kinetics. That means given an amount of drug concentration of the drug, it destroys a constant fraction of cells at a time. So first-order kinetics, fraction of cells, F for F. So no need to get confused with the zero-order kinetics. So the term log kill is used to describe this phenomenon, how much fraction is going to get killed. Then pharmacological sanctuaries. Leukemic or other tumor cells find sanctuary in tissues such as central nervous system, where transport constraints prevent certain chemotherapeutic agents from entering. So they want to get secluded in some areas where the cytotoxic drugs will not enter. It's kind of a defense mechanism from the cancer cells. So a patient may require, for this reason, irradiation of the craniospinal axis in toto, which is not at all beneficial to the patient, and more than it gives rise to more toxicity. Or we can even we can even give intrathecal administration of drugs to eliminate the leukemic cells at that site. Direct intrathecal administration. Similarly, drugs may be unable to penetrate certain areas of solid tumors also. So this is all referred to as pharmacological sanctuaries, central nervous system as well as solid tumors. Then treatment protocols. How you are going to choose the treatment protocols? So here combination drug therapy is more successful than monotherapy. So combination therapy means additive or potentiated cytotoxic drugs, cytotoxic effects when we combine two or more drugs in combination. So drug regimens are number of cycles of combined chemotherapy which can effectively palliate large tumor burdens, may be curative, even when applied to the residual tumor cell population after surgery or radiation. Okay. Then complete remission. So this is possible only when the drugs are used in maximum tolerated doses. And also we have another option like intensive regimens used at an early stage in the disease, so that there will be complete elimination of the cancer itself. So maximum tolerated doses or intensive regimens. Then combination therapy with intermittent pulses. So we give a gap between the cycles. So that is to have total tumor cell kill, giving time in between for normal cells to recover. Because the cytotoxic drugs cannot differentiate whether this is a normal cell or malignant cells. So the normal cells which have the capability of good replicating capacity also are getting affected. So if we give a gap between the cycles with combination therapy, with intermittent pulse therapy, so the normal cells have the ability to recover. So few tumor cells are treated with even single drug also. Then coming to the combination chemotherapy. So principles of combination chemotherapy, what are they? Let us see. Drugs which are effective when used alone. So those can be chosen for combination chemotherapy. Then drugs with different mechanisms of action, drugs with different toxicity, so that the same toxicity will not be enhanced by combining both the drugs. Empirically, by trial and error, optimal schedules are mostly developed by this procedure. Okay. Then drugs with different mechanisms of resistance even are considered. Drugs with known synergistic biochemical interactions when we combine with both the drugs. Then kinetic scheduling. On the basis of cell cycle specificity or non-specificity of the drugs and the phase of the cycle at which the drug exerts its toxicity. That's what we have discussed in our previous slides. So we have divided the cytotoxic drugs into two categories, cell cycle specific and cell cycle non-specific. So we need to know which cell cycle, which phase of the cell cycle we need to target. So we need to pick up that particular group of drugs which is active through that phase. So this is the meaning of kinetic scheduling. Then advantages of combination therapy. So to get maximal cell kill, to prevent drug resistance, to enhance efficacy, and to reduce the toxicity, and optimum scheduling. That means short free interval with intermittent therapy, and drug interactions for most potentiating or additive or synergistic efficacy. Then treatment protocols means combined therapy treatment protocols. Like many cancer treatment protocols have been developed and each one is applicable to a particular neoplastic style. They are usually identified by an acronym like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is the regimen that we are using. R-CHOP regimen. R-CHOP means this is the acronym that we are going to use for all the drugs that are used in that particular regimen. R-CHOP means rituximab orford. C for cyclophosphamide, H for hydroxydonorubicin or doxorubicin even, and O for oncovin or even vincristine also can be used in its place. So CHOP regimen or CHBP regimen also can be used. Then prednisone or prednisolone for P. So here the therapy is scheduled intermittently, approximately 21 days apart. So after giving one cycle, between the second cycle and first cycle, 21 days, there is no therapy. This is to allow recovery or rescue of the patient's immune system as well as the normal cells recovery. Because when the normal cells recover, the immune system automatically recovers. Okay. So there is a possibility of less chances of exposing to infection, because when the immune system gets collapsed, there is a possibility of enhanced infections. So this is the main advantage with the scheduled therapy or intermittent or pulse therapy. So we can have these important drug combinations like MOP regimen in case of Hodgkin's lymphoma, that is meclorethamine, oncovin, prednisolone or procarbazine. ABBD regimen is also used, where you can use doxorubicin, bleomycin, vinblastine, and the carbazine. CMF regimen and CAF regimens for breast cancer, where you can use cyclophosphamide, methotrexate, and 5-fluorouracil. And here cyclophosphamide, doxorubicin, and 5-fluorouracil. And ALL, that is acute lymphoblastic leukemia, combination of, there is no mnemonic is given here for the regimen. Vincristine, prednisolone, asparagine, daunorubicin, AML, cytarabine, and methotrexate, CML, hydroxyurea, and interferon, and Wilms tumor, actinomycin, vincristine, and doxorubicin. Then breast cancer, CMF and DC regimens, Hodgkin's disease, MVPP or MOP regimen, and even DBBD regimen also, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, CDBP regimen, germ cell tumor, BEC regimen, stomach cancer, ECF and ECC regimens, bladder cancer, MVDC regimen, lung cancer, CDB regimen, and colorectal cancer, FFO regimens are used. These are the most common regimens that are generally used. So you need to remember these regimens. So after that, you can write, even if some question is asked like, how do you treat a case of breast cancer in detail? So CMF regimen and DC regimens you can remember, then you can write about in detail about all these drugs. Okay. Then dose intense delivery, that is dose escalation. That is means high intense dose. First dose itself is very high dose. Intense therapy can be used. Then reducing the interval of therapy. Then sequential scheduling, that also can be managed in between the doses. Reducing the interval can be reduced, and sequential schedule, how many spells that you are going to put the patient on. Then problems with chemotherapy. Cancer drugs are toxins that present a lethal threat to the cells. So generally, even the cancer cells try to elaborate their own defensive mechanisms to get themselves protected from the chemotherapeutic threats. So here you can see resistance happens with two mechanisms like intrinsic resistance or acquired resistance. So acquired resistance happens when we keep the patient on for a prolonged period of time. So determinants will be drug concentration, primary target, and target associated pathways, where they will target repair checkpoints and apoptosis. So that's why the resistance happens. So apoptosis will not happen. So again, the resistance can be seen. Same is the case with the repair and checkpoints also. So primary resistance most commonly seen with melanomas. It is present when the drug is first given. Acquired resistance means developed during the treatment with the drug due to adaptation of mutation of tumor cells. Okay. So solution for this type of resistance is to go for short-term intensive intermittent therapy with combination chemotherapy. Short-term you have to give, so there will not be any adaptation. Intensive high dose so that all the cells will be killed, and intermittent therapy so the immune system also can be regained. So multi-drug therapy, what are all the various factors that are involved in the development of multi-drug therapy? Decreased drug uptake, increased reflex, increased drug detoxification, DNA repair activation, then altered drug metabolism, inactive apoptotic machinery, drug target modulation, drug inactivation. These are the various factors that are involved in the development of multi-drug resistance. So what is this multi-drug resistance? Let us see just precisely. Stepwise selection of an amplified gene that codes for a transmembrane protein, that is P-glycoprotein or MDR1 gene. It is a transmembrane protein. For permeability, glycoprotein is responsible for multi-drug resistance. That means P-glycoprotein, which acts as a transmembrane protein which is present in the cell wall, which usually acts like a efflux mechanism. So whenever efflux mechanism for all the toxic materials that try to enter into the cell, it immediately just effluxes out. It's like a delete box or flushing box, we can say. So this resistance is due to ATP dependent pumping of drugs out of the cells in the presence of glycoprotein. So as soon as you put the patient on cytotoxic drugs, chemotherapeutic drugs, the P-glycoprotein, which is like mutated or normally overexpressed, it will just like immediately it will expel the drug outside. So that is there is a possibility of resistance. Cross resistance is also seen following the use of structurally even unrelated agents also between like doxorubicin and even vinblastine and actinomycin. So this is like anti-mitotic drug. This is like anti-cancer antibiotic. So even though they have structural resemblance is not there, there is cross resistance possibility. So this P-glycoprotein protects cells against environmental toxins. It functions as hydrophobic vacuum cleaner, just sends the all kinds of cytotoxic material out of the body immediately, picking up foreign chemicals such as drugs as they enter the cell membrane and expelling them. So you can see this is P-glycoprotein, structure of P-glycoprotein. As soon as the anti-neoplastic drug is entering into the cell, it is ATP mediated mechanism. This because these drugs have cytotoxicity potential, so they will get expelled through the P-glycoprotein, but we can use the inhibitors. Okay. P-glycoprotein is normally expressed at low levels in most cells, whereas it is high levels of P-glycoprotein are expressed in kidney, liver, pancreas, small intestine, colon, adrenal gland, etc. So presence of P-glycoprotein intrinsic resistance to chemotherapy is most commonly seen with adenocarcinomas. Okay, so this P-glycoprotein mediated resistance that is most commonly asked for postgraduate MD examination. How you are going to manage it and all that. So because this P-glycoprotein acts as like a flex pump and just expels the cytotoxic drug, we have to use the drugs which can inhibit that pump. Like for example, verapamil at very high concentration interferes with the effects of the anti-cancer drugs, but because we are using this drug at a higher concentration, that itself, this drug itself is going to produce high risk of ADR. So for that reason, the scientists are going to develop pharmacologically inert pump blockers because they don't have any toxic potential. So they are going to develop it. It is still under research. So here you can see various sorts of resistance mechanisms. That is like one is like antimetabolites. They act over DNA synthesis inhibition. So DNA synthesis gene overexpression that give rise to resistance. And receptor and tyrosine kinase antagonists, they act on cell proliferation. So altered target molecules can be used here. Target molecules, so they also can develop the resistance. Then enzymatic deactivation, and then resisting drug-induced cell cycle arrest or apoptosis. That is another mechanism of resistance development. Then altered membrane transport, that is drug efflux MDR1 gene mutated P glycoprotein or MDR1 gene. Then platinum-based reagents, that is like cancer drugs only, induce DNA damage through by acting on DNA duplication and transcription. So there is a possibility of enhanced DNA repair here. Enhanced. Okay, that will come across later, little bit in detail more when we go through the drugs in proper. Then coming to the general toxicity. Therapy aimed at killing rapidly dividing cancer cells also affects normal cells undergoing rapid proliferation, like that of buccal mucosa, bone marrow, GI mucosa, and hair follicles, which we have already discussed in our first session. So they also contribute to the general toxic manifestations of chemotherapy. So what are the common ADR that we generally come across when we keep the patient on chemotherapy? Severe vomiting, stomatitis, and alopecia, which is transient, because as soon as you stop the chemotherapy cycle, the patient starts getting his or her height back slowly. And myelosuppression that predisposes to infection, this myelosuppression is a very dreadful ADR that we can come across with chemotherapy. Then irreversible ADR. They are most commonly seen with like a bladder toxicity, seen most commonly with cyclophosphamide, cardiotoxicity with doxorubicin, and pulmonary fibrosis with bleomycin. Then how to minimize this ADR potential? By using cytoprotectant drugs and by perfusing the tumor locally, for example, in case of sarcoma of the arm, and sometimes in final stages of carcinoma, when we are expecting major ADR, we can even think about removing some of the patient's marrow prior to the intense treatment and then re-implanting it. So that we'll discuss in detail in subsequent slides. So promoting intensive diuresis to prevent bladder toxicities is another modality. So for whatever drugs that induce bladder toxicities, like cyclophosphamide. Megaloblastic anemia with methotrexate. So it has to be treated with administration of folinic acid or leucovorin. The neutropenia has to be treated with the use of human granulocyte colony stimulating factor or filgrastim. Again, cells will be stimulated. Then because of mutagenic action of the drugs, most commonly seen with alkylating agents, so there is a possibility with these drugs, the development of acute non-lymphocytic leukemia, if you use these drugs for 10 years or more even. But they also respond to the original chemotherapy. But the patient will have the inconvenience of developing another tumor after starting the chemotherapy, which is very cumbersome to the patient. Then chemotherapy-induced toxicity. So generally chemotherapy targets cells which are dividing rapidly, whether it is normal cell or cancer cell. So it cannot distinguish normal cells from cancer cells. So cells which are proliferating at a high rate like skin, hair, GI mucosa and bone marrow get affected. So because of which chemotherapy induced toxicity means we can get all these sorts of ADR like mouth ulcers, nausea and vomiting, nephrotoxicity, diarrhea, cystitis, infertility even. So it is very dangerous for the couple who are really planning for the pregnancy. Then neurotoxicity, hair loss, of course, transient, lung toxicity, cardiotoxicity, local reaction, skin changes, and then like hypertensive sensitivity manifestations. And they can be treated on a general level of hypersensitivity manifestations management. And then bone marrow suppression, which is very dreadful, apart from lung toxicity and cardiotoxicity. So majority of the cytotoxic drugs have more profound effect on rapidly multiplying cells because the most important target of action are the nucleic acids and their precursors. And rapid nucleic acid synthesis occurs during cell division. So what are all the cells that are undergoing through the rapid cell division will get affected here. So the main mechanism of action is controlling the nucleic acid synthesis. Okay. Then many cancers, especially large solid tumors, have a lower growth factor than normal bone marrow and epithelial cells and the reticuloendothelial system and gonads. So these cancers which have lower growth fraction, they'll be little bit spared. So when compared to these things, the normal cells which have high growth fraction. These tissues are particularly affected in a dose-dependent manner by majority of the drugs. That's what we have to think about for such cancers. So oral cavity, what are the general manifestations that we can see? Oral mucosa is susceptible to cytotoxic drugs because of high epithelial cell turnover. So fluorouracil, methotrexate, daunorubicin, doxorubicin can give rise to stomatitis. And gums and oral mucosa are subjected to minor trauma and breaches are common during chewing. So because of this, along with stomatitis, oral microflora is large and can be the source of infection. The neutropenia and depression of immunity caused by the drug directly increases the chances of oral infections. Thrombocytopenia can give rise to bleeding gums, and xerostomia due to the drug may cause rapid progression of dental caries. So we need to treat the patient with amifostine, a cytoprotective agent. Then diarrhea, shedding of mucosa, and hemorrhages. These are all due to decrease in the rate of renewal of GI mucous lining. So in such case, we can give like a break therapy, pulse therapy we can think about. Then mucositis is mostly caused by bleomycin, actinomycin D, daunorubicin, doxorubicin, fluorouracil, and methotrexate. The nausea and vomiting, which are the most common manifestations, they are due to direct stimulation of CTZ by the drug and also by generation of emetic impulses or mediators from the upper GIT and other areas also. So how we are going to treat this kind of side effect is, we have to go for ondansetron, a 5-HT3 receptor antagonist, because metoclopramide cannot be used because it itself produces extrapyramidal side effects. And diphenhydramine can also be used, or in advanced stages, like not advanced stages, excessive nausea and vomiting, we can go for even dexamethasone or lorazepam or aprepitant. Then ADR on skin and hair, dermatitis, it can give rise to hyperpigmentation of skin and alopecia because of damage to the cells of hair follicles. Then hypercalcemia, that is seen most commonly in myeloma, cancer breast, or prostate. Treatment is done with administration of IV bisphosphonates along with vigorous hydration. Then tumor lysis syndrome. This is most commonly seen in case of leukemias and lymphomas. Because of intensive chemotherapy, there is spontaneous lysis of cells, cancer cells, which can release high levels of potassium, phosphate, and uric acid into the blood circulation. So you can see hyperuricemia. So gout and urate stones can be seen in the urinary tract, and it may, if it is not treated immediately, it may land up in acute renal failure also. So the cancer patients which are treated with chemotherapy have a greater possibility to develop the acute gout and acute renal failure also, just because of chemotherapy. So this is treated mainly as soon as the treatment is started in case of lymphomas and leukemias with the high dose intensive therapy. Allopurinol, which is a cytoprotective drug by decreasing uric acid synthesis, also needs to be added along with alkalinizing the urine, and we need to advise the patient to take plenty of fluids along with corticosteroids administration if possible. Then gonads, what is its action? ADR on gonads, inhibition of gonadal cells. So in case of males, oligozoospermia and impotence can be seen. And in case of females, inhibition of ovulation and amenorrhea can be seen. Then apart from that, damage to the germinal cells also can give rise to mutagenesis, and action on fetus. If the patient is a pregnant lady, there is a possibility of profound damage to the developing fetus, giving rise to, leading to abortion or even fetal death or even teratogenic effect also. So better not to give. Then secondary cancers. So the chemotherapeutic drugs or anti-cancer drugs, they do have tumorigenic potential. So because of which there are secondary cancers formation like leukemias, lymphomas, histiocytic tumors, due to depression of cell-mediated and humoral blocking factors against nucleus. Then specific ADR are also seen like pulmonary toxicity, hepatotoxicity, renal toxicity, neuropathy, infertility, hypothyroidism, and pancreatitis. Then specific ADR means we'll just discuss about two or three. That is cisplatin-induced neurotoxicity. So we can administer amifostine, an organic thiophosphate, which on activation by alkaline phosphatase acts as a cytoprotective against cancer chemotherapy and radiotherapy. It is a cytoprotective agent. It is also used for prophylaxis of cisplatin-induced neurotoxicity or nephrotoxicity or radiotherapy-related xerostomia also. Amifostine is a cytoprotective agent. Then, but this amifostine, it itself has the ADR high potential. So it itself gives rise to manifestations like nausea, vomiting, hypotension, infusion-related reaction, and hypocalcemia, etc. So vigorous hydration of the patient before, during, and after cisplatin infusion also reduces this kind of nephrotoxicity. Then cardiomyopathy, that is another specific area by doxorubicin, which is most commonly seen at doses of more than 300 milligrams per square meter area. So treatment is to be done for this specific area with administration of dexarozoxane, an iron chelating agent infused intravenously before doxorubicin therapy, which decreases not only the toxicity but the anti-cancer efficacy of doxorubicin also. And it is also used in the management of anthracycline infusion site reaction due to ectravasation. Then cystitis by cyclophosphamide and ifosfamide. So treatment is done with the systemic administration of Mesna. So irrigating the bladder with acetylcysteine. So these two molecules can be given. So both these molecules are sulfhydryl containing compounds that combine with and detoxify the toxic metabolites in the bladder. Because the toxic metabolites that are formed with the metabolism of cyclophosphamide when you administer to the patient, they are going to attack the sulfhydryl containing compounds. So we are supplying the molecules which can provide this sulfhydryl containing compounds. So that the detoxification process becomes very easy. So then along with that, generous fluid intake and frequent bladder voiding needs to be advised to the patient. The neurotoxicity is most commonly seen with peripheral neurotoxic manifestations like peripheral neuritis, cerebellar toxicity, and arachnoiditis. Then ADR on lymphoreticular tissue means lymphocytopenia and inhibition of lymphocyte function results in suppression of cell-mediated as well as humoral immunity. So when these two are clubbed together, there is again, along with the damage to the epithelial surfaces, the entire host defense mechanisms will be broken down. So because of which there is a enhanced susceptibility to opportunistic infections. So infections by fungi, virus, pneumocystis, organisms, and then toxoplasma, all sorts of infections will start occurring in the patient's body. Then bone marrow ADR. This is the most serious or dreadful toxicity. So depression of bone marrow with all the anti-cancer drugs. So it can give rise to granulocytopenia, agranulocytosis, thrombocytopenia, aplastic anemia, etc. So because of all this cellular bone marrow suppression or depression, infections and bleeding are the usual complications. So it can give rise to anemia, which can be managed with administration of human recombinant erythropoietin, and neutropenia, which can be the cause of enhanced infections in case of patients who are undergoing for cancer chemotherapy. And it is treated by the administration of colony stimulating factors so that the cells can get stimulated. Then thrombocytopenia gives rise to bleeding, and treatment is with platelet transfusions or thrombopoietic growth factors or oprelvecin or thrombopoietin. Then biological agents like recombinant granulocyte mature colony stimulating factor or granulocyte colony stimulating factors hasten recovery from cytotoxic drug-induced myelosuppression. This is the novel drugs. Then filgrastim, it is a human recombinant granulocyte colony stimulating factor started 1 day after myelosuppressive chemotherapy till neutrophil count normalizes. So may be used even for shorten the recovery time from neutropenia. Okay. Then molgramostim, it is a colony stimulating factor injected daily beginning 1 day after last dose of myelosuppressant chemotherapy. It also recovers the neutrophil count. Then interleukin 2, cytokine biological agent that itself has anti-tumor property by amplifying killer T cell response. So it is very good. It will show definitely a very good response. Then bone marrow transplantation after treatment with high doses of myelosuppressant drugs. It is very costly and cumbersome to the patient. And removal of some of the patient's own bone marrow, that we have discussed in the earlier slides, prior to treatment, it is also very cumbersome and tedious procedure, I can say. So we have to remove the patient's bone marrow prior to the treatment. So purging it of cancer cells using specific monoclonal antibodies. So the entire bone marrow becomes absolutely normal. And then we have to replace it into the patient's body after cytotoxic therapy is finished, so that the bone marrow is not going to get affected. There is no possibility of full myelosuppression ADR. Then aliquots of stem cells harvested from the blood following administration of the growth factor molgramostim. So cells are stimulated. So these stem cells are recovered, and then they are expanded in vitro using further hemopoietic growth factors. So stem cell growth is enhanced with this following usage of these drugs one after another. And use of such growth factors after replacement of the bone marrow has been successful in some of the cases. So when you reintroduce the bone marrow, you have to use these two growth factors. Then introduction into the extracted bone marrow of the mutated gene that confers multi-drug resistance, so that the resistance to the cytotoxic drugs is seen by the marrow cells but not the cancer cells. Cancer cells will be killed, but the normal marrow cells will not be killed because they are carrying mutated resistance, multi-drug resistant gene. So this is another therapy. Okay. Then thalidomide, it is also having the cytotoxic property and also used in the management of cancer, and it is also going to produce heavy ADR. It is banned in 1960 because of its teratogenic effect, but reintroduced as reintroduced as immunomodulator and angiogenesis inhibitor anti-tumor drug for cancer chemotherapy. It is also used in erythema nodosa leprosum that we have discussed already in the leprosy management. So it has, this drug molecule has got actions like anxiolytic, antiemetic, adjuvant analgesic or antipyretic action. It counteracts cancer-associated cachexia, retards tumor growth by inhibiting angiogenesis. This is main role. And then acts by suppressing tumor necrosis factor alpha and by modulating interleukin 2. That is also a very good role this molecule has got. Then, so when chemotherapy itself is inducing the toxicity, how we are going to ameliorate this toxicity? Folinic acid as a supplement to prevent anemia or as a rescue after high dose methotrexate. So this is the management that you are going to give. Then these are the various principles that we are going to discuss now. Drugs given in pulses with the 2 to 3 week intervals for normal cells to recover, improve the efficacy of therapy. Malignant cells recovering more slowly. This we have already discussed. Then selective exposure of tumor to the drug, like local therapy, intra-arterial infusion into a limb or head and neck carcinoma. Head and neck where the carcinomatous growth is seen. Intrapleural or intraperitoneal injection, especially for rapidly accumulating pleural effusion or ascites. Topical application on the lesion, where we can see on the skin, buccal mucosa, vagina, etc., to reduce systemic toxicity of the cytotoxic drugs. Then platelet or granulocyte transfusion after treatment to prevent bleeding or infection after the chemotherapy. Then finally, extravasation, which is most commonly seen if the special precautions are not taken care of when we inject the drug intravenously. So this is nothing but accidental extravasation of the cytotoxic drug from the vein into the surrounding healthy tissue, which can cause blisters and even the tissue necrosis. This point has to be paid attention a lot. So treatment is by stopping the drug immediately and apply cold or warm pack for 24 hours and instilling the antidotes. Like for alkylating agents, if they get extravasated, we have to use the antidote like sodium thiosulfate, and for anti-tumor antibiotics, we have to go for hydrocortisone, and plant alkaloids, we have to go for antidote like hyaluronidase. So you can see in this picture that is chemotherapy extravasation. So blebs, and then cell death, necrosis, because of necrosis. Thank you. So with this, I end the session, that is cancer chemotherapy in detail. So what is chemotherapy, various types of chemotherapy, and how you are going to manage the chemotherapy, how you are going to even plan the chemotherapy, what are the principles that you have to pay attention to when you go for combination chemotherapy, and what are the various toxic manifestations that the patient can get exposed to when you put the patient on chemotherapy. So please go through this lecture, and if you have any doubts, you can just contact me on my personal WhatsApp number. Okay. And after this, I'll be uploading few lectures on anti-cancer drugs within this week itself. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.